This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. The following program is rated PG and may contain language and material that may be slightly offensive to some audiences. With us today on the Havery Show, we have my good friend Jeff Carlson, local accountant, businessman, guy with your hand in all the pots.
I try to pull them out sometimes, but yeah,
It gets sticky in there, doesn't it?
it's hard. It's like being in a band. Once you get in, right, you can never get out.
That's right.
They pull you back in.
Speaking of that, pull that closer.
Pull it for me. How's that?
I've known you a long time.
Yeah, I mean, we both been here our whole lives. So.
Whole lives. I went to school with your brother, Billy.
Yep.
And the Carlson name I've known ever since I've known Billy. But really, more so, your dad ran for president of the United States.
He did.
And I was trying to do the math, and it had to have been 1980.
It was 1980.
Okay. I was in middle school.
Yep.
And I remember that, hey, Billy Carlson's dad's running for president.
We were excited.
That was the talk of the whole school. I'm sure the whole town.
We went to a few conventions back then. And you know what's interesting is that Dad passed away recently, a couple years ago, and I was cleaning out his office just last week. Bumper stickers, boxes full of all the paraphernalia from there. So I'm FaceTiming my brother, showing him all these bumper stickers and placards and all the different things, newspaper articles. It was a pretty cool time.
It is such a cool time, and it's a day gone by because that was probably maybe the last election that a regular citizen from a small town felt like they could be the president.
Yeah, and we didn't, Dad always stood up for what he thought was right, no matter what he was working in, sometimes to his benefit, sometimes not to his benefit. But for the most part, he always fought for that. So he always fought for the little guy, a small business owner that became an accountant. And that was the ultimate push for him to do that. And then a few years later, it was Ross Perot, who was obviously super wealthy, but still a little guy not involved in politics that he wanted to try and help promote. Yeah, he almost got there.
He was close.
It was crazy.
There, as I recall, there were a couple of little stumbling blocks that Perot had that he couldn't recover from.
Right.
I think one of them was his "you people" comment. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah, and that he got beat to death over that one.
He did.
And I honestly don't think he meant anything by it.
I don't think so either.
I think he was trying to say "your people" or something to that effect in a complimentary way, and it came out as "you people," and that killed him.
Well, it's really hard when you're in that kind of light and you're on TV every week, or you're being interviewed or listened to by the radio stations or newspapers, and they hear what you're saying, and one little quip that you might not have meant, it's sometimes impossible to recover from.
Absolutely, positively.
And then you don't know. I remember looking at reporters sitting, literally the Board of County Commissioners, we would sit up here and a reporter would be right in front of us. Yeah. And the day before, they had printed an article that was nowhere near what we even said. Yeah. So then you want to think, well, now I'm getting blamed for something I didn't say. It's bad enough when I get blamed for something I did say.
That's right.
It's really tough.
Oh, yeah. And especially like Perot, he wasn't a politician. He wasn't a polished public speaking kind of guy. He was just your regular guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's like a deer in the headlights thing. You put somebody like that on a national stage, and if they're not prepared for it, brother, it's like, feeding those sheep to the wolves.
You imagine all the people sitting in the background like, no.
Oh.
Try to run it by yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've had some political what would we call them? Political adventures?
I guess that's a pretty good term for it. Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
The interesting thing about political career was kind of built over my dad, not something I had ever thought about. I never thought about getting involved in politics. And then around 1990, we moved back to Sebring, and I moved back to Sebring in 96. and joined the family business. And around 2 years later, the city of Sebring started to get an expansionist mentality.
Yeah.
And I started questioning why they're doing it and the cost benefit analysis and where do we come up with how do you know that this is not going to cost you more than you're going to get, and what's the rationale for it? They couldn't answer any of those questions. To this day, I don't think a spreadsheet exists for annexation that says, here's how much it's going to cost us and here's what the tax revenue is going to be. It doesn't exist. So that kind of pushed me into it because it was very costly for us at the time in our business. So, it was a big impact on a lot of small businesses. Sure. And that group of people along the entire highway pulled us in so it's kind of like my dad pushing me to fight the big guy when he's coming after the little guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. It runs in the genes.
Yeah.
So the city council.
City council 9 years, and then county commission for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yeah,
a lot of
big
fun.
learning experience. Yeah. Wink, wink. Ask Harrison.
Oh, hey, listen, man. I admire him not only because he's my son, but he is one of the rare people who literally said you can either complain or you can try to do something about it.
Absolutely.
And he had the guts and the gumption. I'm so proud of him.
Me too.
He did it.
Me too.
He did it. He cared enough to put his money where his mouth was and take a step forward. Is he regretting it now? I don't think so.
I don't think
because
so
he's got a servant's heart. But man, he's getting beat up on a lot of things.
Yeah,
and that's the name of the game.
I try not to beat him up too hard.
But you do sometimes because we talk.
Yeah.
But when you do, you're able to do it in a way that he knows that you're still friends.
Absolutely.
And there's no ugliness about it. There's no spitefulness about it. For you, it's true constructive criticism because you've been there and done that, and you've lived more of a life than him because you're older than him.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, the cool thing about Harrison and I is that we both have a similar business background now, right? So we're both in the accounting field. So when we sit down and talk about an issue that's related to the city, it's pretty much focused on why is the city doing this and how are the costs and what are the reasons that it's not going. So we try to focus more on the numbers than anything else, because it's really easy when you get into politics to switch to the feelings versus data.
Absolutely.
And it has to be data driven, not feelings driven.
That's right.
It has to be.
And let's face it, 99.9% of the constituents are feelings driven.
100%.
Because you know what? They're getting their information from Facebook.
Right.
And they're getting it from Joe's Aunt Sally, who got it from the neighbor next door, who got it from who knows who.
It's amazing how that proliferates too.
It is. It's unbelievable. Just yesterday, I saw a post and it looked sketchy. So I looked it up and it was absolutely, it was on a satire site.
Right.
And people are sharing it like it's fact. Right. And I used to jump into those things and say, this isn't true. This isn't true. And now I don't care. I don't care. If they're going to be dumb enough to post something without checking it first, then let the chips fall where they may.
And it's so easy to check.
So easy.
It is amazing. Even today, just before I came here, I read a post. Someone claimed a politician said something on the federal level. The politician came back and said, I didn't do that. And X now has community notes associated with it. So someone immediately grabbed the hot mic video footage, which could be faked now too, but they posted it immediately, kind of fact checking from a community standpoint instead of some obscure person in a room saying, that's not true. That never happened. Because we know that doesn't work.
That's right.
Yeah.
The old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. We throw that out the window now because we've gone from Photoshop to AI video.
It's crazy.
It's absolutely surreal. And we're living in a time and place now where you have to question everything.
Especially when someone tells you not to question something.
That's usually the biggest red flag.
Then it means question more.
Yeah, that's correct.
To try and get to the bottom of whatever's going on. And there are so many sources, but trying to, even if you get down to, the old adage, if there's not a photo or a video of me doing it, I didn't do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right, you got to prove it. But now you could make that up in seconds.
It's incredible.
With AI.
I can get a free app on my phone. I can upload a picture of you and upload a picture of me and make it have a fist fight.
Yeah.
And it looks
you should add that to
nearly. I should do that. Oh, people would pass it around like it was truth too. Do you remember the first AI video?
I don't.
It was one of the very first. It was a guy eating spaghetti,
Right?
and it was the most god awful, really horrific looking thing. But it was so fascinating to know that this didn't really happen. This is just the computer imagining what a guy eating spaghetti would look like, and it was just gross.
Ugh.
And
I'm gonna go look for that.
so clearly,
Here's gonna look for it.
you got to. You've got to. Your life won't be complete unless you
I'm
look it up.
definitely looking for it.
People are going to Google this now.
Right.
But the point is it was clearly fake.
Yeah.
Clearly fake. But now the AI has gotten so good, it's getting harder, and I can still tell, but it's getting harder and harder.
Even video games, video games from the 80s when we first started were words, right?
That's right.
Turn left and go down. You're going down a hallway.
Yes.
And now you've got these video games that have real actors' voices, sometimes AI versions of their voices, and the video footage is surreal, like I'm watching a movie while I'm playing video games. And the first one of those was Dragon's Lair. We thought was cool.
You beat me to it. Do you remember where the Dragon's Lair game was?
Here in Sebring?
Yes.
I do not.
Yes, it was at Magic Market.
Was it really?
Yeah.
At the Magic Market over there where the Children's Advocacy Center is?
Nope, that was Shop and Go.
Oh, the Magic Market over across from Family Dollar.
You're getting closer.
Ridgewood
You're getting closer.
That was a Magic Market.
It was, but the Magic Market that had Dragon's Lair was the one on Kenilworth, where Froggy's is now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was a Magic Market, and that had Dragon's Lair in the far back corner on the left
too
side.
far from my neighborhood.
Oh, that was yeah, it was. I rode my bike to that place many a times. I never got good at Dragon's Lair.
I couldn't either. There was a certain spot where I just stopped.
Yeah,
and I couldn't get past it. No matter what I did.
For me, it was there was like a river, and you're going through this river, and you had to go left or right, and I could never time it right.
Right, me either.
I just liked the other games. And it was cool how Dragon's Lair looked like a cartoon. It was
we
so
thought, oh my God, this
cool.
is so real.
Yeah. But I liked Gorf.
Yeah.
And I liked Rally X and
I like
Asteroids. Spy Hunter. Now that was at the Shop and Go.
Yeah, the music just keeps rolling.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting. 863-385-5020. There's a place that we used to go when now this is great. This is great. There was a place we used to go when the kids were little. We used to go skiing once a year.
Yep.
And we used to go to New Hampshire.
Yep.
Laconia, Weirs Beach. Fun spot.
Right?
Do you know Fun Spot?
No, I know what you're talking about. I have not been there, but people have told me I need to go over there.
We need to go. You and me and Harrison.
I'm down.
We need to go up to Fun Spot. It's the world's museum of vintage arcade games.
And can you play them?
All of them, $0.25 a pop, and there's over 300 of them.
Wow!
And every classic game you can name, they have it. And if it's not on the floor, it's in the warehouse getting ready to be, rotated. But pick a game, and I'm telling you, it's there.
Did you ever go to my parents never took me to Disney. If we went, we stayed at Fort Wilderness in a tent or something like that. But I did have an uncle that had a little bit of money. So he used to rent rooms at the Contemporary. And at that time, the Contemporary was new.
That's right.
But if we couldn't afford to stay at the Contemporary, the basement game room was insane. And Mom would give us you never went there?
Oh, I didn't know.
In my memory, it's like the size of bigger than 3 basketball courts.
Yes.
But probably it was maybe half of a basketball court. But man, we just thought that was heaven.
Oh, yeah.
And $10, I could stay there for hours.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, video games are $1 a piece.
It's crazy. If I would love to do a calculation and figure out how much money I put into video games over the course of my lifetime.
Be interesting.
It would be a staggering number, I think.
Yeah.
Staggering.
Well, I always told my friends that like to play slots or blackjack or any of that I would rather put $0.25 into a video game and get the entertainment value out of it than gamble it away. I know it's going to be gone. I'm not thinking about anything come in, but I'd rather play video game. And I still do. I mean, I still have an Xbox at my house with a controller there and a headset. And I like Warcraft, so I still play video games when I get the chance.
We still have it's a retro arcade, and it's got Robotron and Defender and Stargate, and it's got all those on it.
Stargate.
Whenever Katie is down, Katie and Rodney and Harrison, they would always have a tournament.
Yeah,
and me too. I would get in on it too.
That's awesome.
Dawn's game of choice is always Centipede.
Yeah,
so that's always fun. But
I never was very good at that one.
Yeah, that was the first one of the first ones to introduce a trackball.
Right.
Which was groundbreaking for its time too. And Missile Command.
Oh yeah, I remember.
I love Missile Command. That's one of the ones that I'll just spend dollar after quarter after quarter after quarter, dollar after dollar at Fun Spot playing Missile Command.
Now, did you also think, based on movies like The Last Starfighter, that when I'm playing Missile Command, it's actually a training tool and a testing tool for the military, and that I'm going to get recruited someday?
Yes,
I had that dream.
Yes, especially like on something like Battlezone.
Right, right.
Remember Battlezone, where you, with the joysticks and the goggle thing? That one always felt like a real training simulator.
One we played on the computer games when we could start connecting to each other was a game called Comanche, and it was basically Apache helicopters.
Oh yeah,
and the graphics were really bad compared to today, but at that time, we could be flying side by side doing missions in these helicopters with all the real weapons and, joysticks and everything set up really nice. And you could turn and look at each other. And this is not a VR headset. This is 20 years ago.
It's crazy.
But it was insane. And talking to your friends who are in Texas or Utah or wherever they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult even to get games up like that today. Although I did hear someone talk about building a game called Roblox, which is like Minecraft.
Okay.
But it's an open source map game. So basically what you do is you go in and build a cool map and then try and get people to play. And if enough people play, you get monetized. So I was talking to my son Logan about that the other day. I said, this would be really cool. I think I need to try this.
Yeah, why not?
Make a few maps.
And monetizing is the key, isn't it?
I think monetization, we were talking about this before the show, monetization on something like YouTube or X.
Yeah.
I think X has a lower monetization. It's a lower viewing than YouTube. YouTube is very high. Yeah. And until you get someone to sponsor you, then you're not really moving up. So even if you have 250,000 subscribers, you're not making enough money to live off.
Yeah, that's right.
Or probably even pay for the production of the videos. You know, it's very hard to turn into someone like Mr. Beast.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm thinking about turning my attention to foot videos just to get me to the next level that I can pay for the the Havery show and have fun.
Feetfinder.com. It's hilarious. We went on a trip with some friends. There were 4 couples, and at some point we were all staying in Airbnb. And at some point I got out of the shower or something, and someone looked at my feet, and I have large feet, and I have a very large big toe, and they're like, man, everyone freaked out. Like, look at your toe. They're all looking at it. And you sit there thinking, well, should I be offended that they're picking on me? No, this is what I did. I embraced it. So every time we went to a historical place, I would pull my shoe off, hold my toe up, and take a picture of it in front of whatever, the Capitol building or something like that.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. So now there's a whole collection of pictures from vacation of my toe standing in front of famous places. The Trevi Fountain, Jeff's Toe.
Jeff'sToe.com.
Right. It hasn't been monetized yet.
Hit that subscribe button.
That'd be pretty funny. I think that's crazy though. There is that the monetization in those weird realms, not necessarily weird, but say different realms.
Sure.
Other than just people talking.
There's a lot of realms out there.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And that's only on the regular web.
Right.
I don't even want to think about what's on the dark web.
I don't even want to try and find that.
You know what? I've always been a curious guy. And I'm the one that when you walk by the park bench and you see the sign that says wet paint, I'm the one who's going to touch the paint.
Right.
Because it's just how I'm wired. I'm curious.
Me too.
And I question everything.
Me too.
And so even with that, I have not and will not go onto the dark web.
No, I haven't either.
I don't want it.
No, I don't even know how to do it.
I don't either.
My son's a computer engineer. I'm sure he could tell me. I'm sure he's been out there.
That's just something that is best left undiscovered and for me.
I have gotten credit alerts that said they found my email address on the dark web.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it scrubs it. So,
okay.
If you subscribe to one of those services, it can scrub that, which is security. For me, security, I'm like over the top with security because of what I do. So I never connect to public Wi-Fi's. I never do any of that because you never know
That's right.
who's going to be out there.
Yeah. And they're out there all right.
It's amazing.
Oh, it is.
Probably every flight that you're on, if you connect to that Wi-Fi, someone on that plane is trying to get into your device.
I'm sure there's people that book flights specifically for that reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, interesting, on a flight I was on recently, I tried to open, if I do connect to that Wi-Fi, because I have to do something, I always run a VPN. So to protect me from anyone prying eyes around me, other than the people that are next to me that can see, but the plane's Wi-Fi shut down when I opened the VPN. And that didn't make any sense. So I haven't had a chance to reach out to that carrier.
Interesting.
And ask them about that. But it was kind of weird that should be your first line of defense to trying to protect yourself, because they're not going to do it. They don't care.
Sure.
They just want people to watch TV and leave them alone.
Yeah.
Which is mostly what they do.
Well, mostly.
Yeah, all right.
Let's play a game.
Okay.
Word association game.
Oh, man. Here we go.
I'm just going to say something and you just respond.
You can edit out the long pause.
I can. But I usually, you know what? So far, I haven't edited anything on any of the episodes.
Okay.
So far, they just run right through.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Butch Downing. One of my very favorite teachers of all time. So there you go.
Crotch. If you know Coach Downing.
So did you have him?
Oh, yeah.
What do you remember what years?
All of Sebring Middle School.
Okay. Yeah.
Years, which was what I left Sebring Middle School probably in 84 or 85, around the time because you graduated in 85. Yeah. I was at Sebring High. That's because Sebring Middle School. So my class, I was fourth grade at Woodlawn, going into fifth grade thinking we're going to be king of the castle finally.
Right.
And they moved us to Sebring Middle. So we were bottom of the barrel again.
Yes, that's right.
And I moved to Sebring High in ninth grade, the year you guys were graduating. Yes. We were both there at 1 year. So like 83, 84, something like that.
Yeah.
So the early 80s.
I can say this about him. When I left 8th grade, I was in the pinnacle of shape, and I have never been in better shape than I was when I left 8th grade.
Yeah, I tried out for the football team, and he said, put on all this gear and run around the school. And I took off all the gear and said, yeah, football's But, he used to come to city council meetings a lot when I was on city council. I would say if not every meeting, at least once a month, he was showing up to the city council meeting. So it was cool to spend some time on that as not a little kid now, talking to this man that was a mentor to so many.
Oh, yeah.
And probably a torturer to a few.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. No, he was no nonsense.
Correct.
And you didn't play with him.
We need more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget this. I'm sure he did this with you guys too, but he did this with us. He'd have us lined up on the curb and he'd say, "Follow me." And off he'd go, start running. And he would run us off campus to the orange groves, through the orange groves into the high school where he had all the softball gear set up.
We ran down the railroad tracks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the railroad tracks was another one of his favorite things.
Which, by the way, at that time was groves, right? Everything to the east of the railroad tracks.
That's correct. That's 100% right. So it was softball. So, we were doing that for a couple of weeks, whatever. But there was this kid, George Raphael, and, Coach Downing always pitched.
Yep.
And the one position you did not want to play was first base, because if you were unlucky enough to hit the ball back to coach, he would field it, and he wouldn't just throw you out. He'd wait and wait and wait until you were almost there. And then he would fire it like a rifle to the first baseman, and you better catch that ball.
Take a finger off.
I'm telling you, you better catch it, because there was 2 rules. Baseball, if it touches your glove, it's catchable. Right. And football, if it touches your fingers, it's catchable, and you better catch it.
Yep.
So this one time that somebody hit a dinker to coach, he picked it up and he waited and waited. It's the only time I've ever seen it happen. He threw a wild ball to first base. And this kid, George Raphael, is standing behind the screen. "Hey, coach, what do you call that?"
Oh, man, I can't even imagine the wrath.
Oh boy, I think that kid was running laps the whole rest of the
bet he
night.
was. Yeah.
He was hard, but you know what? He's one of the most influential men probably of my life. But he was hard.
Yeah, he was. He was.
This episode of the Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting. 863-385-5020. You got any favorite teachers that come to mind?
Carolyn Campbell.
Oh yeah.
By far.
Oh yeah.
One of the brightest, most beautiful people I've ever met. Yeah. Not only the really cool thing about being back in the town where we grew up is if it wasn't for Miss Campbell, I probably would not have been able to figure out math.
Yeah.
Sitting in her and I wasn't really, I was in Mr. Agee's general math class in 8th grade. So by the time I got to 9th grade, it was a big jump for me to take something like Algebra 1 or geometry.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she really took the time to do it. And then my kids got to experience being in her class as well.
Yeah, mine too.
And having, and being able to talk to her after class. I mean, I always had a crush on her. So if I ever had a crush in school, it was Miss Campbell.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And rightfully so. I had her first.
She was probably 22 when she was at Sebring High School.
She was pretty young. Her and Janine, back then, Gowdy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. They were very young teachers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first teacher crush was Heidi Austin, Miss Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was in 4th grade. Yep. Yep.
I remember my teachers, like, I can't remember all of them, but like my first grade teacher was Miss Nash.
Yes.
And I remember her. And in my memory, she was like 90 at the time. I bet she was 45.
Yeah, right. Isn't that funny?
And Miss Crooks at First Methodist Church was my kindergarten teacher. And I remember her. Yeah. But then to skip a few years, I don't remember too many, but the ones that made a big, because I didn't really care about school as much at that time. So that all changed when after I got out of high school. I still didn't care that much, but at least I paid attention. Knowing what I know now about high school, I tried to impart this on my kids that it was so, I don't want to use the term easy, but if I had just taken the time to do my homework, I never took books home.
Yeah.
If I had just taken that one extra step, we're talking 15, 20 minutes a night to pay attention to what's going on. Acing grade school all the way through 12th grade would not be that. It's not that much effort.
It's not.
At that time, you're so smart. Your brain is just a sponge. As we get older, it's harder for us to ingest that stuff than it was back then.
That's a fact.
And trying to learn how they're teaching math today, I don't even know how anyone can figure it out.
Well, I think that's part of the design.
Not be able to figure it out. I certainly couldn't. Our 15-year-old, I couldn't figure it out.
Don't even get me started on that.
Yeah.
But this goes back to the Rockefellers and everything.
Oh yeah.
Else, this goes back to the powers that be wanting us to be a population of workers, not thinkers.
Hilarious. I just had this conversation with one of our peers from high school the other night, and disagreed with me that that's not where it comes from. Anyway, it's 100% where it comes from.
Oh, absolutely. And it's tied in. Everything's tied in. Education system's tied in. Healthcare system's tied in.
Sick care system.
Sick care system. Yeah, all of it. It's all tied in, and it all goes back to them.
I agree.
It's remarkable.
I agree with that. It was funny when my dad was, I would say he was definitely a conspiracy theorist by today's standard. Yeah. But all of the conspiracies he used to talk to me about when I was a kid, I always thought, you're crazy. None of this is real. I don't know what you're talking about. So when I got into college, I started having to do more research type work. And I started reading some of these books. And then I started collecting some of these books written back in the 20s and 30s and 40s about those times. And there's one called None Dare Call It Conspiracy. That's insane, talking about the consolidation of the media industry. We're getting way off topic.
No. This is
another one that called The Merchant Bankers. Yeah. And the Merchant Bankers really gets in all the way back to Rothschild, working their way up to today, and how our banking industry, not today, but 1950s, how it works and how it was all set up that way. Yeah, it's wild.
All right. So since we're playing word association and we're in the topic, Project Mockingbird.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
I'm not going to tell you. You look.
I'll look
you do due diligence.
Okay.
All right.
I will.
All right. What about Tartaria?
No.
Oh.
So I'm not researching enough conspiracy theories now.
You got to look up Tartaria.
We're going to have another show where we just talk about these conspiracy theories. You're going to have to text me to remind me.
Okay. Oh, I will too. I'm fascinated by this stuff.
Good.
My quest in life is to know the truth.
Me too.
Here's my theory on this. How am I expected to conduct myself in a safe, sane, and sensible manner if I don't know the truth about myself? How am I expected to know the truth about myself if I don't know the truth about God?
Mm-hmm.
And finally, what is truth? And Pilate had it right. What is truth? And I think that today you have to ask that more than any time in our history.
Oh, we hear a lot of my truth versus your truth.
Oh, sure. But there isn't mine versus yours. There's only truth. Now, there's your opinion about truth.
True.
There's my
That's a good
opinion
interpretation,
about truth. But truth does not need a witness. Truth doesn't need to be backed up by anything. Truth exists on its own. Now, I can believe what I want to believe, but that's different. And sometimes my beliefs and my truths add up and match. Sometimes they don't.
I had a good AI conversation with Grok yesterday.
Oh, yeah? How is Grok?
God.
Yeah.
And you know, you used to be able to search this like Wikipedia, and you would say, who is Jesus? And it would say Jesus, a mythical creature, you know, a mythical person from, or something to that effect. Grok was a lot more, that's the X version of AI.
Oh, sure.
It was a lot more supporting facts and references. So it has a new feature that's pretty crazy called deep thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And you click on that button and it goes into Jesus, obviously, and well-documented real person.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, tell me the sources.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me like 6 written documents outside of Christian texts talking about Jesus. So it's really cool getting into what is it? And you can steer it in different directions. Okay, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I adjust this? And then ask, the cool thing about giving you the references is that you can dig a little bit deeper. Have you ever used the Logos app?
No.
Logos is
about it, but
it's pretty cool.
I know of it.
Jessica and I went to a Jimmy Evans conference in Houston.
Good old Jimmy.
A year or two ago. It was last April, I think, that we went. It was a great conference. Yeah. We got a lot of people there, crazy big churches.
Sure.
But they did a presentation for 1 hour and I subscribed after that. So the only bad thing about Logos app is I use it for my Bible app now. So when I'm sitting in church and Pastor Todd says, okay, 1 Corinthians 2:10 or whatever, I pull that up, but then it gives me further descriptive stuff. And then you can swipe to to other passages outside of that text and start researching it, what it meant and what scholars think it means. So sometimes my ADD kicks in and then I'm like 5 things past what Todd was talking about in church. But it's very cool from an insightful standpoint to be able to search references, and you can open up on a desktop. You can open up, it'll have multiple windows. So you can have biblical text here and then other secular text, if you will, on the right, kind of guiding you through. It's a pretty cool little app.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I've heard good things about it. I looked at it years ago when I was in ministry, but then I got out of ministry, so I didn't pursue it.
Yeah. Now AI, I mean, at work, you know, it's amazing. The kids are using it to cheat in school now.
Oh, sure.
They're writing their papers, finding their answers. For me, it's easier. This is the crazy thing about even Google. If I go to the IRS.gov's official website and I try to search for a form, it almost never takes me to that form.
Yeah.
If I go to Google and Google that form, it's the top hit. IRS.gov/that form.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. If you go to AI, it'll not only find the form and the instructions for you, it can interpret specific scenarios from the text of the instructions and reference that back to Internal Revenue Code and give you all the references.
Holy moly.
So, for instance, if you have an issue, you get a letter from the IRS CP 162 or something like that. They code their letters for specific purposes. You can tell AI now, you know, type me this. Mm-hmm. Now, even when it does that, you need to know what you're doing before you send it, because it makes references to things that are unrelated sometimes. Mm-hmm. But it's pretty cool to give you the sources that you can go back and get back up to.
Very cool.
I don't know a lot of other scenarios where it would work in my world. Now, as a pastor, I could say I'm going to cover John over the next 3 months. Write me a script.
Yeah, you think there's not pastors using that?
Oh, 100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. IRS.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the ramifications that may happen with Doge getting their hands on the IRS?
I'm excited about it. So I'm actually not an advocate of progressive tax system. I'm not an advocate of income tax system. And some people would say, but you're in that business.
Right.
I don't care. I would rather be able to help businesses grow and maintain and analyze their costs and their financials than worrying about tax compliance. So I'm an advocate for a flat consumption tax.
Yes, me too.
I don't know what the percentage is. I've run some numbers, but it's kind of hard because you take a $6 trillion budget. How much of that is from income tax revenue and start dividing it out? It's a pretty big number. It's almost 100% consumption tax. But if you did away with income tax, it's the only 100% fair way for, say it's 10%.
Yeah.
If you want to buy a Ferrari for $500,000, you pay $50,000. If I want to buy a Chevy for $50,000, I'm going to pay $5,000. Yeah. It's the only fair way to do it. So from Doge perspective, if they can push Congress in that direction, at least starting to work something like that, it avoids all of the special interest group. No carve-outs.
Absolutely.
Everybody pays.
Yeah.
Right now we've got, 50% of the population pays nothing.
Right.
Another 20% gets money back of paying nothing.
Yes.
So when they say, tax breaks for the billionaires, you're talking about 20% of the population that pays 80% of the tax. Mm-hmm. So you're not really talking about billionaires. You're talking about regular people that have two incomes at home that are working. So it does have impact.
Yeah, for sure.
What do I think they'll do short term? I think the IRS is already pushing back. So we've seen a decrease in response time over the last month, 2 months, month probably. We've seen a decrease in response times, not only on filing things and waiting for them to respond, but phone calls and trying to get through. So it's like they've shut the phones because they haven't done anything there yet.
You're right.
But it's like they're turning the phones off or piling paper up just to make Doge look bad or to Trump look bad. And I think that's sad because the ramifications for real taxpayers, someone waiting on getting a transcript.
Yes.
And they're not processing the request. Someone waiting on getting a tax ID number. Yeah. Even the computer systems don't work. Yeah. The most important thing they could do, imagine running a multi-billion-dollar business that every year they say, we've got to do computer upgrades. We're going to shut the computer systems down for 2 months. Mm-hmm. Effectively, that's what the IRS does. Yeah. Every year, December, January, their computer systems are off. Mm-hmm. So then you're filing things with paper. They also turn it off. Everything should be electronic. It should all be numerical and get fun. And then no one's touching it. So it's all computerized. Their computer systems are 70 years old. Yeah. They don't even have programmers that know the language anymore. They're so old. So that's another thing they need to attack. Yeah. And I've been posting that on X quite a bit. Like, you guys really need to jump on this because it makes the whole system inefficient. Yeah. And if you think that electronic filing has some fraudulent, imagine how fraudulent paper can be with someone sitting there looking at it and trying to interpret handwritten forms.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. But flat tax would do away with all that and we wouldn't have to worry about it anymore.
That's right.
You could do away with the IRS completely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 100% open to that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I think that's definitely worth looking at.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm a smaller government guy.
Me too. I would like for it to be down to very essential things. Yeah. And you know what? One of the arguments that I make to that is like, well, who would help out with this? Could get a little far to the right, but who will help out on a local level with food banks and things like that? Well, we have local food banks. Right. If the IRS wasn't taking so much of our money, we would have more money to give to the churches and the local food banks and the homeless shelters to help people that currently we don't have because they're dependent on this funnel of take the money from people, send it to the federal government. Mm-hmm. These people beg someone in the federal government to send it back in the form of a grant. So we're constantly fighting this cycle. And in the midst of it, 50% of it goes away to probably to administrative costs. So
it would have to be all of that.
I would much rather see local churches and not-for-profits take up the fight that they fought for hundreds of years all around the world to help people that need help.
Here's another one for you. I don't know how you'll respond to this one, but talk about taxing and church and everything. I know that when I was the music director at Bible Fellowship, there are a couple of times that I floated the idea of let's pay our taxes. Like, well, we don't have to pay taxes. I know, but Jesus himself said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. I kind of feel like churches need to be paying their fair share.
Well, and if we were in a consumption tax with no carve outs, that would solve that problem
Sure
too,
would.
right? No matter what you went to buy, because even in that system, sometimes I won't say there's abuse, but there could be in using my not-for-profit status to go buy something that's not necessarily going to go for not-for-profit. But I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with it under the current tax code and the way that it works, because if I'm paying Caesar his funds and I'm trying to give money to the church, I would give much more money to the church if I didn't have to give so much to the federal
Absolutely.
government.
Sure.
So, and at the end of the day, how much, if I was finance director of a church, I would definitely spend all those funds so that by the end of the year, I wouldn't have anything to pay tax on.
Well, yeah.
They're going to be at last. But, churches, so let's talk about a church that's in growth mode, right? And they're trying to gain contributions to build a new facility, for instance.
Sure.
They could be hit, say they raise an extra $100,000 in a year, they could be hit with taxes on the $100,000, take them less, more time to build up the funds. But I see where you're coming from.
I get it. I have no problem with the church not paying taxes, except for Jesus said,
right. I'm
pay
with
it.
you. I'm with you.
If he hadn't said it, and then I would be fine with it. So either you got to cherry pick and take that. You take that. No, that's not in context and everything else. And there are people that would argue that.
Right.
I don't know. That's my stumbling block is right there.
And if everybody at the church was also tithing, then we would have more money and be able to push that money through.
That's correct.
If they were able to deduct that money against their taxable income, that could help. Again, flat tax avoids all of those special interest carve-outs.
Yeah.
So that would create an interesting situation. And then you get into, how about this one? I'm going to hit you back with one. There's a, when you read the tithing, and I don't remember the verse, but when you read the tithing verse, it says, give 1 of every 10.
That's correct.
So if I was a mathematician and I was giving a strict interpretation of that, it doesn't mean the common 10%. It means that once I get 10, I give 1. So if I only have 19, I'm still only giving 1 instead of giving 1.9, if that makes any sense.
It does.
So it's an interesting interpretation. I've always tried to debate that. It doesn't really go that far, and I'm certainly not using that to give less money to the church. But if someone wanted to strictly interpret that, they could say it doesn't mean 10%. It means I'm going to give 1 of every 10.
Well, and that's true. And interpretation is everything, isn't it?
Right.
Because you get 10 people and ask their interpretations of any given scripture, and you're going to get several different answers.
Absolutely.
Depending on your core values and your core beliefs.
I agree with that. I think that's one reasons why it's good to have churches. If it's a real Christian church, there are some churches now that don't believe in the resurrection of Christ. And if you don't believe the resurrection of Christ, to me, you're not a Christian. So you couldn't really call yourself a church, but I think it's a church in general pretty much has to have the same belief system within it for the most part. Otherwise you would be in a constant strife. But I guess that takes away the concept of questioning things.
Sure.
But you have to sometimes, like forgiveness. This is something that people struggle with all the time. And I've met with multiple pastors talking about this.
Yeah.
And the Bible says forgive unconditionally. And Pastor Todd talked about this a little bit on Sunday. But it's really hard if I want to forgive someone, and in my mind, if that person doesn't want forgiveness or seek forgiveness, or if that person doesn't think they did anything that requires forgiveness, it's hard for me to wrap my arms around forgiving them. It's kind of like going to confessional and saying, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
Yeah.
I'm not Catholic, but it's kind of like that, right? I'm admitting that I did something wrong, and therefore God's going to forgive me for letting him know and confessing that I've done something wrong. That's hard. That's one of the hardest things I've had to grapple with in my lifetime, is trying to get my arms around those parts of Scripture.
Yeah. Is it harder? Do you think it's harder for you to ask someone to forgive you, or is it harder for you to forgive someone who's hurt you?
It's harder for me to forgive someone that's wronged me than to ask for forgiveness. I hope that that's the way I feel right now. My first response to that question. I hope that if I wrong someone, that I would have the strength to ask for forgiveness in that scenario. I hope that I would have that.
Yeah. It's always the hope, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
And strive, all we can do is
Yeah,
strive.
that's
We're all
right.
sinners. So all we can do on a daily basis is try to be better.
Yeah.
No matter what it is,
Yeah.
from marriage to work to anything else. I tell everybody when I first meet them that my tier is, I want to make sure when I go to sleep at night, the God and the IRS are happy in that order. So let's make sure we're doing something right.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
God, family, country
Yes.
would be my normal tagline if I were running for office. Yes. Give it a soapbox.
Speaking of that, you going to run for office anytime soon?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I think we've got, I would say for the most part, things are okay right now. I think there's a little bit too much spending and not enough cutting,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a constant with government. And once you get up there, it is a different perspective once you get up there and you're like, we need to cut. And then they come to you and say, oh, but we need this thing or these people to solve this problem. It's hard to say no.
Yeah.
Government was, so the answer is no.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to do that. I think I will stay involved with those that are elected and try as much as I can to at least insert my opinion, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
If I can stay there in contact with those people, it's a lot easier than being elected.
Yeah.
There's a lot less flexibility in being elected. The cost benefit to family life is not really there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's where Harrison is in good shape because he's single.
Right.
So now is a good time for him to be doing this. And it's going to be harder.
Absolutely.
It's going to be harder if, once he does end up getting married and has a family.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything changes at that point.
Yeah. All the guitars go.
Or
Or bass. All the bass.
in his case. Yeah. What was the first movie?
Squirrel too.
The squirrel. Have you seen the squirrel?
I did.
Oh, he's a pretty cute little guy.
He tried to sell it to me, and I'm like, sell it to me. It's a wild creature. And he's like, okay, I'll give you $10 if you take it. I actually sent a picture to my wife, and I'm like, you want a squirrel? No.
Oh, man.
She probably would have taken it.
He's a cutie.
He is cute.
Yeah. Squirrels are fun. I used to have a prairie dog,
Yeah.
and he was the best pet ever.
Did you buy it or did you find it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I bought him on a cross-country trip
Wow.
from, I don't even remember where, but I stopped in Pensacola and got him at a
That's wild.
exotic pet store. Coolest pet. We've had two over the years. Rodney had one, and then I got one.
Very cool.
Yeah, but that squirrel reminds me a lot of the prairie dog in a lot of ways. Both they're snugglers. That prairie dog would climb right up here and just turn into a
Hang out.
ball. And
That's cool.
It's so fun. Such a cute little.
Very cool.
What do you remember the old movie theaters? The
Southgate?
Twins? Yes,
Of course.
before.
Remember before it was
Yeah,
twins?
absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, we used to. My old man used to go in and clean on certain days.
Did he?
And
Cool.
I'd get dragged in there. There was a smoking section,
Oh yeah.
and I think it was in the back right hand corner, if I'm not mistaken.
You are right. The big one, yeah.
Yep. Because that's where we sat. Because
there
it was a
still
smoke.
smoking section in the when it split. I
Yeah,
believe,
there was.
too.
There was. Also, do you remember when they used to play the Star Spangled Banner?
Yep.
And everybody
movies?
stood before the movies, and they had a movie of the flag, and yeah, that was
One of the first
cool.
movies I remember seeing there was the re-release of Midway
Oh wow,
on the big screen. That was a big screen.
yeah, it was
back
huge,
then. It was really big,
huge.
and the seats were super comfortable for the time.
That was the rocking chair theater.
theater,
That was groundbreaking.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
Do you remember how you got a ride home after?
I sure do.
How?
So back then, the payphones, you didn't have to put the money in until somebody answered the phone.
Right.
So you just walk right down. You go,
And it was right down where like or by the dollar
That's
store.
right on the left hand side. Yeah, you walk down there. You pass the Mushroom. You pass Crenshaw's,
Yep.
and you go down by Doctor Faust had something
correct.
there. Yeah,
His optical shop
That's
was
right.
there. Yeah.
and so you call the house, and when you hear someone say hello, you hang up, and that was the code.
Now, when we were a little bit older, probably late maybe 8th or 9th grade, we would get dropped off there, and then we would skate the movie and walk over to McDonald's because that's where everybody hung out.
Oh
back then.
yeah.
And unbeknownst to me at the time, my mother thought something suspicious was going on, so she would go over to the Village Inn, or it was Sambo's or something.
Sambo's. It was
She
Sambo's.
would go over there and park in that parking lot.
Yeah.
and just to watch me and what I was doing. She said one time, me and my friends walked right in between her car and another car, and I didn't even notice she was there.
Moms are sneaky that way.
Yeah, she never caught me there doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
So we would go over there and hang out for a little while and leave.
Yeah.
That's where everybody was.
Do you remember the hangout before McDonald's?
No.
It was right there. It was right there at the theater.
At the Burger Queen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Burger Queen. Do you remember that?
I do remember
That was a cool place. They had good food. I liked their burgers.
Good. Yeah, that building completely gone because that would have been behind the gas station, right? Right there in the corner.
Yeah, right where the where you pull up when you're trying to avoid the light and you pull through and you cut through the parking lot and that's where it would have been right there, and you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Superman came out, I remember me and David Tavernier and Clark Patterson. That was Rocky. There was a great series of movies. But we would ride our bikes, and before the movie, we would go to McDonald's or something, grab food. Then we go to the movies and watch the movie, and then sometimes we would do like a trifecta, and you'd hit Burger Queen, and then you hit McDonald's, and then at one point, Burger King was also in play too. Yep. So we get something from here, something from there, and something for there. We rode all over the place on our bikes.
We did too. I was to Seshi, so up near Valencia Circle. So we would ride downtown. Was pretty much as far. I might have ridden out to one of my buddies lived on Kearley off Golfview.
Oh yeah,
back then, and I probably rode my bike out there a couple of times. But if I got because there was no sidewalk or anything.
No.
So you would just ride in the highway because it wasn't near the traffic we have.
Of course not. Yeah, there was a couple of times I rode my bike out to Arabinko's house.
Yeah,
and I would have got destroyed if I would have if she would have found out. My mom would have found out that I crossed 27 on my bike.
Absolutely.
Oh, would have.
I don't like going on 20. I live downtown like you. I don't want to go out on the highway if I don't have to. Like if Central Builders was still over there, Eucalyptus, I would never go out on the highway.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now there's an icon.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that in a long time.
I would love that. Or, the old Feathers Dry Cleaners building was the feed store when we were kids. So if that was still a feed store, that'd be, you wouldn't have to go anywhere. Everything was right here.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
It really was a perfect little town to grow up in. I loved going to the feed store to see the chickens and the ducks, in that rack.
My parents didn't like it when we brought them home, but
oh yeah,
that was okay.
Yeah, they were cheap. It was cool. We always had chickens and ducks at our house, right next door.
Right,
that's where I grew up. Right next door, and there was going through old stuff. I've got all these tubs of stuff, and come across these papers, and there was an admit to class.
Right. That you still had?
Yeah, because it was so good. And it said reason for absence or tardiness, and it said for the reason, ask him about his ducks. So what would happen is my ducks, I had 3 ducks. I had 5 at one point, but I had these 3 ducks that would get loose. And they walked down to the courthouse. And so my mom would call the school, and I would have to leave school to go because they wouldn't follow anybody else. I'd just walk and they would follow me right back. I put them in the cage, so I
were late for school.
Or I'd leave school. I'd
go get them
to go get the ducks. Go get the ducks out of the courthouse. Okay. Yeah.
When we could still do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Different times. For sure.
No doubt. Boba Fett.
Yeah. I actually met him.
Really?
The actor, and his name totally slips me now. Jeremy. The original Boba Fett actor. So my brother and I with the kids, he still does because he has a 14 and 15-year-old. So they still go to Comic-Cons a lot.
Uh-huh.
We used to go to Star Wars Celebration every year.
Oh, yeah.
We would go to Battlestar Galactica stuff. We would go to all the Comic-Cons and different things. So we went to a Doctor Who convention.
Oh, wow. You really are a nerd.
It was so small. There was almost nobody there but him.
Yeah.
He was there signing a book that he had written. And he and his wife, Marlene, I think was her name. And we went over and got his signature on the book and bought a copy. It's in my office now. Later that night, we took the kids to Applebee's.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe it was just Billy and I don't remember. We were sitting there eating dinner, and he and his wife walked in, and they were looking for a table. And we're like, hey, do you want to join us? So we literally sat at Applebee's and had dinner one night with the actor that played Boba Fett in the original.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy. And he was super cool, super nice. He just died a few years ago.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. Very cool stuff.
It's going to bug me until I look up his name. It's on the tip of my tongue too. And I used to know all this stuff.
Yeah, me too.
I've forgotten so much.
Yeah, it happens more and more as we get older.
All right. Blue Snaggletooth.
Was that from Hanna-Barbera cartoons?
No, that's a Star Wars.
Oh, that was the I don't know.
It was a variant action figure. There was this regular Snaggletooth that was red.
Right.
It was a short.
And they had a blue action figure.
Blue one that was tall, and there's a split toe or a closed toe variant. I wanted to know how far to go with this, so we're just testing the waters.
Not getting that deep. I actually have in my office right now Boba Fett's ship. It's about this tall.
Slave One.
I have the Millennium Falcon, which is about half the size of this table. It's pretty big. And you know where they came from? Tommy Griffin's son was getting rid of all of his toys because he had outlived them. And I'm like, I'll take them.
Yeah.
Take them also. I also have, when I passed the CPA exam back in 2000 or something like that, my brother, as a gift, bought me a voice-activated R2-D2.
Oh, nice.
Which I haven't. He has one in his office. He's got a lot more toys in his office than I have in mine, but that's pretty cool. And so he just sits on the shelf now.
Talk about Billy a little bit. He's in big time politics in St. Pete.
Tampa. City of Tampa.
City of Tampa.
I mean, he's involved all over the area because of his business. They've been there. You know, he left, I think he came back from Singapore around 97 and took over his PR, public relations, government crisis management company there. And then decided to get in politics really because of the waste that he was seeing, and cronyism and nepotism is really what happened with him. You know, and he and I, from a Tampa perspective, he moved to Tampa in 85 to go to UT, University of Tampa. And I used to go over there a lot to visit him. And then in 87, I went over there to go to USF. So we both lived together in Tampa back in the 80s.
Oh, boy.
At the 80s at that time, I don't know if you remember, it was Sandy Friedman was going she was going on a burn the crack houses down. Those crack houses, you could see the smoke pluming from around there, they were all in Hyde Park.
Yeah.
Those are now multi-million-dollar homes, and they were just leveling them because they were full of drug addicts. Yeah. So he got involved for a similar reason that I did. He was watching the waste, watching what was going on. He loves the town. He's been there for a long, long time, and he wanted to try and get involved and stop that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes when you get involved, you're one of 5, or in his case, one of 7. You get up there and you hit this wall. Like, why doesn't anyone else care about this? You know, he would look at building a $160 million building and think, okay, we're going to build a $160 million building for 400 or 500 people. You know, the math doesn't work out. We have similar debate here. Like, why don't we buy a building that already exists? Yeah. Remodel it. Yeah. But even on a local level, in our small level versus his big level, it's the same fight.
Sure.
People want, I don't know, they want what they want, but that's his battle. And he's been in it pretty hard since then and constantly trying to figure out ways to make, and he's South Tampa, so he covers that Hyde Park area.
So it's a city council thing? And how does he have a term limit, or is
he's on his second term right now?
Okay.
They're 4-year terms.
Okay.
And maybe higher things.
Yeah.
He'll look at it in the future. There seems to be a lot of waste and potential fraud that goes on there.
Really? In Tampa?
It's crazy.
No.
Well, and it happens here too, right? So think about
what?
In Tampa, you know the Channelside district?
Yeah.
Channelside's been rebuilt 2 or 3 times.
Sure it has.
It's beautiful now.
Yeah.
But what you've got is there's a Community Redevelopment Agency in downtown Tampa, and I don't want to speak for him, and if I'm wrong, Billy, after you see this, please correct me, but in the comments section. There's a CRA in downtown district. All of that money pretty much is going to the developers of that area. Okay. And that's one of the battles he's been fighting. These big developers fighting this battle, getting this, and they're making improvements, but it's at the expense of other areas in South Tampa that have potholes. Yeah. So we have a similar problem in downtown. Our CRA focuses, for the most part, on a very small district from Wall Street into the middle of the circle. And then it pretty much stops outside of that because we want to focus on this. Now, they do some things outside of that, but for the most part, the city and the CRA focus on that area. Yeah. And they're not focusing on it because it's because there's a big developer or anyone involved. I'm not really sure why they don't go off. I mean, one of the biggest businesses One of the busiest businesses in downtown Sebring right now is the Habitat for Humanity store.
Sure it is.
There are people literally lined up in front of that store every single morning waiting for it to open.
Yeah.
So they can be the first one to see whatever got dropped off the night before. And we don't have any other businesses like that.
That's a tricky one right there. And here's why. I believe the original intent of Habitat was very much like Goodwill and Salvation Army, was to provide good quality products for people with low income.
Mm-hmm.
But now you've got pickers who are coming in, and a sofa. My sofa here at Musicland, which is the center point of all my decorations.
Right.
Got that for like $50.
Right.
Right. But now, because there's pickers come in and they want the vintage stuff, they're able to charge 2 or 3 times what they normally would have, and which is good because they're making money and they're using the money for the community and the people that need it. But at the same time, some of the things are getting priced out.
So people that are supposed to be for can't get them anymore.
Exactly. And I don't know what you can do about that. I don't know that there's a way.
No, I don't know that there is either. I bought a couch and a chair there that I thought was in really nice shape for like $200.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, man, that seems like a really cheap, right? But in what we're talking about right now, it really shouldn't be.
Yeah. I walk by there. I walk by almost every day. I take a walk downtown almost every day. There's stuff in there for like $700-800, you know.
What?
Really? Yeah. Beautiful antique stuff.
Wow.
Which I get it. You know, you can't put $40 on an antique, you know, so there has to be some reality to the thing too.
Yeah.
But it's tough.
I bet it's tough for them to even decide what to keep. I mean,
Absolutely.
my office is right next door. Some parking lots, or my parking lot is right behind there, right next to their dumpster. But people dump so much stuff. They probably fill that dumpster every day with stuff that people just throw stuff out there that they don't have a way to dispose of for a lot of it. So they don't know what to do with it. And then we have people that come and dig through that dumpster and through that stuff, and they put it everywhere else.
Yeah.
So it ends up maybe all over downtown.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
Yeah, you've got your challenges with your property.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
I like to have breakfast with my city councilman to talk to him. Since he also lives right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've been going at it for nearly an hour. Over an hour, believe it or not. And we haven't even touched on some of the good stuff like the flat earth and the moon landing and all that kind of stuff.
The moon landing, I've been sending my son, so he's a moon landing believer. And now that I watch more and more of this stuff, and who knows what it's created, we could talk a whole show on that. But
oh, yeah.
It's hard to believe when you read and look at some of the stuff about the moon landing to actually think they really did that.
There's so many things that shoot holes in it for me. The simplest one that gives me cause to doubt is the phone call between Nixon and the astronauts.
Right.
What?
Right. Agreed.
What? With no lag? With no lag time between, it's like having a conversation right here.
Not possible.
Not possible. And you watch.
Not possible today.
No. See, they destroyed all that.
Yeah.
They destroyed all that.
Well, that's the part that makes me really question, why would you destroy the evidence if you really did it?
Right. You know
You
what?
would want to preserve it and do it again.
Yeah. You know what we never talk about? And I had forgotten that it ever even existed. And somehow it popped into my head the other day. And then I had to wonder if I was experiencing a Mandela effect or something. Skylab.
Yeah. That just crashed into the ocean, didn't it? That's just disappeared.
Yeah, but that was the big pivotal thing between landing on the moon and the space shuttles.
Getting us ready.
Was Skylab. It's all but forgotten. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And some of the okay. I'm just going to get in trouble. I don't care. But
Get in trouble by who?
You remember, the listeners. There's listeners that will not like this. You remember when the space station footage first started getting shown and how cool it was?
Yep.
How I can't believe it. This is the most amazing thing. We are seeing these astronauts in the space station
Mhm.
and just being blown away by it. And now you look at that footage and you see the women with their hair in gel to make
Right.
it look like it's floating, and
Right.
and you see a guy,
How bad it looked.
how terrible it looked, and you can see the harness straps, and you can even see the harnesses sometimes because they didn't quite get them out of the shot, and
Star Wars did a better job in 77 than they did.
they really did.
Have you ever seen the video
true.
of Stanley Kubrick?
I sure have.
He filmed all that.
Yeah, and there's and I've also looked to debunk it too, because if I look at a piece of evidence, I'm going to look at it from both sides.
Right.
I'm not going to just look at it from the side that makes me feel good, that will reinforce what I already believe.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what the truth about it is. So I've seen that video, black and white video, very grainy,
Mm-hmm.
very compelling, but I've also heard that wasn't actually him. I don't know. It goes back to what is
any
true.
evidence?
I don't know that there's any evidence that it is him, and I don't know that there's any compelling evidence that it is not him. So then you just have to go with what your core values say. Well, since I believe this is what it must be. And I don't have any use for that. I want to know the truth. Tell me the truth. And here's the deal. I don't care if we landed on the moon or not.
Right.
I
Just tell me the truth.
I don't care who shot Kennedy.
Right.
I don't care if it's a flat earth or a round earth. I don't care. Just tell me the truth. That's all I want. It's the John Lennon song. All I want is the
Agreed.
truth. Just give me some truth.
I agree with that.
I think we're getting closer to it.
I hope, we're getting to the truth of some things, but like Elon Musk says, if there were aliens, if anybody in the world knew it, it would be me.
Yeah.
If we didn't go to the moon, anybody in the world that would know would be me.
Yeah.
So then part of you thinks, okay, you're obviously part of the conspiracy. If you're saying
Sure. Yeah.
But you think, what would his motivation be? Elon's a guy, if you've read his biography, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He really doesn't care about the money.
Mhm.
And he's proven that time and time again by putting it all on the line for new things that would be beneficial to us.
That's right.
And now he's the evil guy. People are selling Teslas because he's trying to cut government waste.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. There's a great meme floating around right now that says the left is jumping up and down over the fact that he's looking into government, but none of them have really said that he's lying about anything he's finding.
Mm-hmm.
They did say that about the 150-year-old person that's getting Social Security, but I never heard them say they were getting Social Security. I heard them say they're in the database and still active.
Right.
So they hadn't got, I don't think they had released whether or not they were still getting benefits, but
Yeah. At the end of the day, for me, everything is relative, and it's all about divide and conquer. I think that's the ultimate agenda, is to divide and conquer.
I 100% agree.
And I think that at the end, I think they're two sides of the same coin, or as some would say, two wings on the same bird. But yeah.
There was a book, and I totally not, I'm thinking of Aldous Huxley, but it's not his book. It's like, and I feel like wanting to search it, Rules for Dissidents,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And it talks about this divide and conquer is a strategy. If you're a dissident and you want to get your message across, divide everyone.
That's right.
So no matter what the topic is, identity, financial,
Sure.
social issues, whatever it is, if we can get everybody to be on different sides, that polarization creates chaos, and that chaos allows something, whether it be nefarious or not, something to get into the system that no one's not playing. It's like, oh, look over there. There's nothing to see here. And we all look and we watch that distraction, and we have no idea what's really going on because we're not paying attention to that thing over on the other side that's happening. It's wild.
It is. It's a wild time to be alive, and it's a wild time to be in the United States of America.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I'm going to go to the Gulf of America again just to check it out and sit on the beach for a few minutes. You can edit that part out.
I'm not editing nothing out. There's just, Coach Downing used to say, sometimes you got to laugh to keep from crying.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't even know what the right response to some things is. Everything is getting so ridiculously out of hand.
Did you ever see the movie Joe versus the Volcano?
No. That was Tom Hanks, wasn't
One
it?
of my favorite all-time movies, and Meg Ryan.
Yeah.
It is freaking hilarious. But Meg Ryan plays multiple parts, and in one of the parts, someone will be talking to her about something, and she just sits back and says, "I have no response to that." It's one of my favorite responses, by the way. I have no response to that.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna borrow that. I'll borrow it from
You have to watch the
via
movie
her.
too.
Well, otherwise it doesn't count.
Right,
Otherwise I've
right.
appropriated.
Exactly.
Holy moly! All right, we got
She'll get a laugh.
yes, we got a lot to talk about next time.
All right, I'm in.
Yeah, we'll narrow the scope next time and talk about like a couple of specific things.
Let's talk about it beforehand, and then I'll bring some receipts.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff.
Thanks,
I love you,
buddy.
man.
Love
Great
you
to
too,
see
buddy.
you.
You too.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, we're out.
Thumbs up.
The Havery Show has been brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
Glory to the name